Darrin, I'm going to start with you. If you had to grade the president's speech last night, what would you give it?
I would actually give him a B+ or an A- because he's...
That's exactly what I thought it would be.
Right, because he spoke in terms of we're now shifting towards a meritocracy as opposed to timestamps in a withdrawal. And when we look at the last administration, there was, I want to say there was a lot of hyperbole, but I felt that President Obama didn't effectively connect with the generals that were on the ground. As an ex-military person, I oftentimes identified that you had politicians that made decisions and they didn't incorporate the military strategy the way they should have. And so when I look at this, this particular conference from President Trump, I was very, very impressed. One thing I will add is he read from the teleprompter from beginning to end. I think he learned his lesson from what happened with the Charlottesville speech.
Right. And Jessica, I want to point out that he did, and we'll get to that in a second, but he was very clear in this was not what I said on the campaign trail, essentially. This is not what I've been talking about, but here is how I came to this decision. And he opened the address with a message of unity, and he reminded people, I understand that lives are at risk. I understand what is at stake here. And I want to speak to a gentleman, Alex Gonzalez from Fort Bragg, and also the parents of this young medic, Devin, at Fort Bragg, who's being deployed to Afghanistan for the first time this weekend, because these are people I just met in the airport and talked to, and they feel like that they are supported by the president.
I think it's wonderful, and I think that for anybody, when you're staring military personnel in the eye, it's a lot different than when you're talking by yourself in a vacuum. And I think that you've really felt the gravity of the moment there. I myself gave him a B for that, which is, I think, the highest ranking I've given him for anything throughout the campaign and into the presidency. I thought the speech made a lot of sense. It is a continuation in a lot of ways of the Obama policy. You can see the effects. It's not a Trump policy, and he admitted that, that this was a pivot. I think, frankly, he made that decision because of General Mattis and McMaster obviously coming to him and saying, you know, this is not going to work. This is not a way to win the war. You know, what you were saying about just pulling out. We can't leave Afghanistan in a vacuum there.
Because the options were a troop reduction, the use of mercenary forces or private forces,
right,
or this, which is backed by Dunford, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mattis and McMaster.
100%. I think it was completely the appropriate thing to do, and it is also, going back to Darrin's point, to Bush-era talk of the way that these wars are going to be won without the specific numbers and without the deadlines on it. That's something that President Obama put on everything, and that got him in a lot of trouble, because he'd say this will be done by this time, and then when you don't meet those deadlines. I think the main issue here is, what does winning actually look like? There were very few clear markers of what's going to be good enough for us to get out of there. No one wants American troops over there forever. So what's going to have to happen for that?
Well, I think it was very telling, because I went back and listened to the speech a second time, that this is a military increase in the military force, but is also, he pointed out, the political solution is the way out of this. Bringing the Taliban, perhaps it will be possible to have a settlement with the Taliban. We need the assistance of India and Pakistan. So
that's a big break in policy, calling out Pakistan and India in that way, to say you need to help us out more here. And then that's consistent with what he's been doing even with NATO allies, right? Saying you've got to get more involved here, pay your fair share, and make sure that we're all on the same page.
Kevin, I want to get your reaction to this, because a really critical part of this speech, at the beginning in particular, was about denouncing hatred and bigotry. Let's listen to the president.
When we open our hearts to patriotism, there is no room for prejudice, no place for bigotry, and no tolerance for hate. The young men and women we send to fight our wars abroad deserve to return to a country that is not at war with itself at home. We cannot remain a force for peace in the world if we are not at peace with each other.
Kevin, this goes a long way after the upset based on the president's comments after Charlottesville that Saturday, but then also on that Tuesday.
Yeah, and I think it's a conciliatory statement given the fact how this nation's feeling right now. And I gave him a B on his speech last night for several reasons. One is that I think when we just talked about with Pakistan, we need them to step up, especially because we do have the power of purse. We do give them lots of money. Two is comments like this. He is actually coming back around and realizing that he needs to unite the nation.
Why did you give him a B- though?
Okay, so one of the things he mentions we're not going to nation build, we're going to kill terrorists, and that's it. But the problem is that we can't just do bombs and bullets. We also need to work with Pakistan. We need to do books and buildings.
But I heard,
right? You know what I mean?
Heard that.
Right.
I heard that though. I heard that we'll talk about the military solution, but really the ultimate end game is a political one.
Right.
Is coming to the table. I want to read people or tell people what Republican Senator John McCain, what he said in response to that speech, saying the president was, quote, now moving us well beyond the prior administration's failed strategy of merely postponing defeat. And then also, I listened to Lindsey Graham on the Fox News channel last night. He said he was proud and relieved, and he was proud of the president, and that he did not make a political decision last night. But again, the president's gotten some major support from members of the, other than Rand Paul, major support from members of the Republican Party.
Right, and the only thing I want to get back to is that he's talking about troop numbers, and we're not going to lay things out. I think the most important thing is he wants to devote enough time, energy, and resources to the military that they've been requesting. We talk about people being deployed over there. A lot of people in the military say, listen, we don't have enough resources. We're not given the tools to win. And so I would have loved to seen him talk more about that, where he's going to give them what they need.
And we'll give you the final word.
I think that this was a historical moment or a watershed moment for Donald Trump, in that he was able to grow the tent for not just the Republican Party, but us as a nation in general. This was his first primetime speech, and I truly believe that he nailed it. And he walked back a lot of the comments that he made in the past. Moving forward, he now has to show and prove and stay consistent on this pathway to the words that he mentioned.
But he does have a lot of people in his base who are none too happy about this. I saw that all over Twitter. Prominent people like Mike Sternanovich,
right,
which I think I just mispronounced, who said, you know, what did we have an election for? You know, this is globalism. This is Steve Bannon war that's going to come from this.
And now outside of the White House, we'll hear more from Bannon. But the note I made at the top last night of when I was taking notes, stay on message going forward, more primetime addresses, and stick to this, what he's said so far about Afghanistan. So much